Pretty tough one against West Coast Eagles. What's the mindset going into it?
Yeah, I mean, all you can go is by training. Training's been good, as usual. I mean, have to give credit to the players. Their enthusiasm's been pretty good. Obviously, Gaz doesn't help, and Alex Sexton's a probably good runner for us. And then we've lost Trent McKenzie now. He's hurt his hemi last night at training, so he'll be out as well. So we thought after the bye we might have had some respite, which we did for a week or two. Now it's back to what it was. So yeah, we'll be, and then Michael Riccitelli's obviously out with because of his mum. So we, yeah, it's going to be a very inexperienced side. But anyway, I mean, I think they've come through pretty well from the other periods with their effort, with a willingness to learn, and that's a. I think we're going to have the mindset we're going to try and win tomorrow. No, we have to defend well. We're going to have to work hard, but certainly, we've got some things we're going to try and put into place because we think our strength is going to be our forward line, but we've got to be able to get the ball up there.
Is it a scary proposition now that you're missing a few extra midfielders and we know how deep the Eagles go on that part of the ground?
Yeah, well, I think that's been the case for a fair bit of the time. Obviously, when Gary came back, gave us a bit, and then there was David Swallow there for a couple of weeks, gave us a bit of impetus in that area. But we have battled really to get some midfielders through there. But as I keep saying, out of a negative, there's always a positive. Tuke Miller's actually stepped up in the midfield. Jesse Lonergan we thought did well last week in the midfield, which was good. So that just gives more players exposure to the actual role.
How serious is Trent? What happens to him?
No, he just right at the end of training, ground ball. Didn't know whether it was a cramp or whether he'd actually twinged it. He had a bit of a run this morning, which he feels okay, but just a bit of awareness. 48 hours after feeling it's just not worth the risk. So well, hopefully it'll be right for next week. So we'll do some work on him the next few days, and hopefully he's right to go next week.
Does that mean everything's just ultra defensive this week? I mean, you're focused on every week is defence and trying to get the opposition from scoring as much as possible. But I mean, we give the opportunity for you guys to back themselves, at least create some more. Yeah,
that's what I said earlier. That we're out there to the win, so we've got to defend well. By the same token, we've got to be bold with our ball use because against West Coast, if you're not, I mean, they hem you in. I think as Sydney showed last week, and Sydney in the top 4 teams in the competition, they're able to hold them to 2 goals to half time. So I think that shows the enormity of the task. But having said that, we've got a talented forward line, and we need to work hard to try and get the ball inside our 50 to give them a chance.
You heard from the umpires all this week. Is that all the coaches heard from the umpires about the spike from last week?
I must admit, I'm quite the opposite of the other coaches. The way Wayne explained it, I didn't really notice too much of a difference. Like to think it's like myself as a coach or us as coaches, you talk to your players, listen, we probably need to improve in this area, but you're not changing your game style. We just need to a bit of more focus. The way Wayne explained it, I didn't think he would need to articulate that to us, to be honest. I thought the way he explained it was fine. He's a bit more of a focus on the umpires. If there's free kicks there to pay them, they may have overcorrected, but it wasn't a directive, so I didn't think that the umpiring department need to tell us that.
You didn't notice more free kicks from stoppages?
Oh, there's a few more, but that's not a directive from the umpiring department to the umpires. The umpires have overcorrected by the sounds of things, so the point of the argument is I don't think we needed to be told that.
Well, your defence, for a large period they battled pretty manfully, I thought, under pressure and under territorial pressure, but some of them are starting to get beaten one-on-one. Is it pressure or is it fatigue, and do you sort of think, do you agree that they're just starting to battle a bit?
Mainly last week. You'd like to think it's a bit of an aberration rather than because previously to that, I thought they've held on pretty well, as you said. Probably as a unit, our defenders were down last week individually. Probably Stephen May played well. I thought Colin Jasny did well on bets. The other 4 or 5 probably struggled a bit. So can't be total fatigue. Rory's only just come back. So I think hopefully it was an aberration. Hopefully they can improve that area. I mean, obviously there's got to be pressure from upfield a bit, but we did get beaten one-on-one at times. There were some really poor defensive efforts from some individuals, which were spoken about this week and reviewed. So hopefully they can improve in that area. But it's going to be a tough one this week against a very talented. You talk about, I've spoken about. Now we've got some talent in our forward line, but their forward line is fantastic with the talent they've got and the service they get from their midfield, so it's going to be a big ask for them.
You've seen them once this year already. How highly do you rate West Coast? I'm sort of trying to come up with challenges for Hawthorn at the moment. Do you rate them in that bracket?
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, there's no doubt. I think, I mean, form can fluctuate and we'll change our minds at various stages depending on how teams go, but Sydney seem to be in a bit of a trough at the moment. You would think probably Hawthorn and West Coast seem to be the best two teams at the moment, and they're playing the next week or two, I think. So that'll give us more of an indication. But as far as indication going to the finals, it's about those top 4 teams, whoever they may be, having players available and having form at the right time. Form at round 16 or 18 is not going to actually tell you much. So I think the top 4 teams last year had very minimal players out. So if any one of those teams start to get some injuries, it'll certainly tell when they get to the heat of the finals.
How big is the job of how big is the influence of the ruck duel in a game like this? Because if they can run
they
forward
can,
a bit,
yeah.
West Coast, and they get first hands with
Yeah, I think they've got a lot of confidence in that Nui, as you would do, because of his leap and his ability to get his hand on the ball and his follow-up. I thought last time when we got beaten easily in Perth that Tom Nichols was very good. Nat Nui didn't have a great influence on the game. So obviously Tom, he's a young ruckman, but we think he's had a good year with his competitive nature. So hopefully that can happen again. But we're certainly not naive to think that they can get a breakaway. So we've got to have to work hard at stoppage, especially centre bounces.
You got 6 weeks left, Brock. How many of your players, just looking forward, how many of your players are you still trying to form opinions on in regards to futures at the club?
As far as staying here,
yeah,
Michael?
Yeah, just to look in the next, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Is there much you can learn in the next 6 weeks, or are you pretty comfortable?
Pretty comfortable. I don't think we'll make many changes as far as delistings. Obviously, the trade market will be up and about with teams and what happens, and have an open mind with that. We haven't had any set opinions in that area. Players, though, can certainly play themselves out of contention, and certainly can play themselves into higher status. There's no doubt about that. It's about their effort and their attitude and their persistence. We've got a tough day at the office, I'd imagine, at the weekend, but you judge people by how they go about it, whether it becomes too hard for them and they actually collapse. But I haven't seen much of that. I think our players have been fairly resilient. So that's the sort of thing we're looking for going forward.
Sorry, one more on Jack Martin.
Your boy?
He is. When you go to the footy to watch him, and you must have been looking forward to an opportunity to get a bit of continuity, and he's been hurt, and he had the suspension. And what do you expect from him, and what have been your observations with the limited looks I guess you've had?
Like all players who have missed a bit of footy, the expectations aren't high for him this weekend. I mean, he's just got to get. I mean, the pace of the game between AFL and even VFL standard, let alone the AFL standard, is huge. So he'll just take a few weeks to be able to work his way in to get the pace of the game. But he's even before he got injured, his pre-season was pretty good. Then he fluctuated a bit, which all young people do. It's only his second year. It's been unfortunate that he hasn't had a real good look at it as far as games played and continuity, as you say. So he just needs to get that continuity going forward. And obviously, he's got a lot of talent. I suppose the pleasing thing with him is he's a competitive player. He competes hard, he tackles well, he wins his own ball. So that's along with, you have a look at Ablett, Swallow, Prestia and O'Meara. I think we've had 22 games out of the 4 of them, and then you throw Jack in, he's probably had half a dozen games. You probably have cut off 30 games out of 5 of your best players. So hopefully those players can get some continuity going forward.
Is Jack, was that a little hiccup with the drinking, and you noticed that any issues with his professionalism, or any sort of hopes for him?
I think, like all young players, they can fluctuate. Jack's pre-season was going fantastically well till about early Feb, and then it sort of hit a lull, and his training dropped off a bit. I think with all young players, they need good role models, and they need good mentors around as well. And having such a young squad, we need to develop that leadership so they can be an influence on the younger players coming through about what's required. But also, there's a lot of young lads like Jack have come across from the other side of the country. There's homesickness involved. There's a whole range of issues that you've got to deal with young players. You've got to understand that and work with them on that. Jack's a long way from home. It's only his second year. But I've seen, as I said, oscillation, but generally I've seen a pretty good attitude.
Just on the outside of that, Turk Miller, if things were ideal, had a fully fit team, would you prefer to give him a break? I mean, how do you treat him over the last few weeks after such a big season? Yes,
I certainly like to give him a break. I've spoken to him about that probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, but we keep any injuries not to be able. Now we're probably in the worst scenario injury-wise than we were 6 weeks ago as far as the midfield, so he's got to play in the midfield. And yeah, he was very good 2 weeks ago when he won the Rising Star. Last week was a bit down. Maybe it's fatigue, so we just got to be careful of that. Adam Sard's had the 3 weeks off as well with his groin, which obviously it's a build-up of fatigue as well. So we've got to be mindful of that. So hopefully we get some players back and maybe 2 can be sub for a game to actually ease his workload.
Does he get to the stage though where he says, no, I want to play every game in my first season? No?
Oh, I don't think you'll get Touk want to have a rest.
Yeah.
I think he wants to keep playing.
Mm.
Yeah.
Rob, how much time have you put into this week stopping the Eagles drive at the back half? Yo and Wellingham and Shepherd have really played out this year.
Oh, there's a lot of areas to West Coast. One's the centre square, one's their stoppages, one's their forward line and one's their back line. So it's pretty much a full, I think it's a full gambit. There's a bit of that. I suppose about our defensive structures, we'll do some things a little bit different. We did that against GWS a little bit differently to try and maybe slow them down to a degree so we can actually get back and help the defenders.